Hey everybody, welcome, welcome. My name is Karim Samra. I'm the CEO and founder of Changelabs, and I'm really excited to be with you here today hosting this amazing fireside chat with Google. Very exciting, of course. We have quite an audience here today. Some of them from our current program running with Orange and some community because we did invite the broader community, and I see many of you who have joined from outside from the community, and I'm very excited to host you. So once again, this is a series that we do throughout our accelerator programs where we bring in leading experts from various private sector, NGO, and other places to talk to us a little bit about their thoughts on entrepreneurship, on technology in the MENA region, on employment in the MENA region. Basically, any questions that are interesting and exciting to us and to our audiences. So I want to immediately start by introducing to you our guest speaker today. His name is Lino Cattaruzzi. I think I've pronounced that correctly, but he can correct me later if I haven't. He's the regional director of Middle East and North Africa at Google. And again, Google, we haven't heard a lot about Google specifically in this region recently, but it looks like Google is making a bigger push in the MENA region. Lino was ranked as one of the Forbes top 50 regional executives in MENA. He has more than 20 years experience in tech. He used to be based in Mexico. Wow. I just realized that I've been to Mexico many times, hung out in quite a few neighborhoods there, including Polanco. I don't know if you know that neighborhood, Lino, but did spend some time there. We've run some programs in Mexico before. And he's also worked in California and Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And again, we're going to be talking to Lino about his background, about entrepreneurship in the Middle East in general, and we're going to be finding out more about why he spent so much time in so many different places, and whether that's part of the reason why he's been so successful at Google, and what kind of advice and tips he can give to us in our startups and our entrepreneurs. So he's worked at AOL before that in Latin America. And so again, I'm going to let him give us a little bit more details later on. But thanks for being with us. This is the bio of Lino, our guest speaker today. Lino, why don't you introduce yourself for just 10, 15 seconds before we get started off with some questions?
Perfect. It's a pleasure. And you pronounce my last name properly. I know Polanco, the neighborhood in Mexico, of course, very well. Listen, I'm an Argentinian that is a computer scientist and love technology and what internet was bringing to me. And to put things in perspective, I'm 47, almost 48 years old. When I was a child, I was watching TV black and white. Okay, and I remember the day when that turned into color. So maybe it's a little bit of a difference with every single other person here in the call. I love technology and I'm driven by passion around what I do, and I can talk to you a lot about that. But what I would really like to do, besides the questions that I've been answering, is to engage in a conversation that adds value into what you want to achieve. And I'll be not bringing you any corporate slur, much more really trying to give you an honest perspective into what you should be doing. Although that's kind of the guidance we get at Google, transparency. So that should work.
Sounds great, Lino. Thank you so much. So, we're going to be starting with a bunch of questions today, that we kind of prepared based on what we think, our entrepreneurs and our startups and sort of the general community wants to know. And we're also going to be letting the audience ask some questions, to see kind of what they think live. And so Pamela, who's my colleague, will be collecting questions. Because of the size of the group today, we're not going to be able to do kind of live, speaking by the audience, but we will collect your questions, guys, in the comment box, and we'll be sure to share them with Lino as they come in. So keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming, whatever the question might be in the comment box, we will take it, we'll address it, and I will ask Lino that question. We'll make sure to capture it. Okay, so let's get started, Lino, with just a little bit. I mean, you talked a little bit about you touched on your career journey, but how did you get to the Middle East? I mean, you're Argentinian, right? You're a tech guy, you're watching TV in black and white, and now today you're the regional director of Google in the Middle East and North Africa. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, the big answer is I'm driven by learning, and one of the dimensions that you can use to learn is about changing geographies. and understanding the different problems that we need to cater for in different places in the world. I'm living currently in Dubai, managing MENA, but this is my eighth country to live. So I have used this quite extensively. So to give you maybe a couple of pieces of information that will tell you a lot into why am I here. You know, when I was a child, I had this mission, and I got clarity into what I wanted to do, which was much more related into planes and you know, ideally go to the moon or something like that. You know, possibly something shared with everyone. But as I went to the Air Force in Argentina, I realized that was not exactly what I wanted to do.
So you joined the Air Force?
Yeah, I joined the Air Force.
You wanted to do planes and aeronautics or something to do with airlines and the moon?
Oh, never airlines. I love my country, Argentina, and I love planes and a number of other things. So that I always was much more Air Force, and then if there was a space program at one point in time going in that direction.
So you joined the Air Force. That was your first move. Okay, let me join the Air Force. I'm excited about planes. I love my country. Bam, go to the Air Force. What happened there?
You know, I think it's a common thing, which when we have these ideas that are not necessarily reflected with the reality you find when you effectively start doing them. But the key is to learn the lessons around that. So in my case, there's a number of things that that was a plus, and there's a number of things that effectively proved me that I should be doing something else. So I love my country, defending my country, all these things, very positive. I love planes. Actually, I've met phenomenal human beings there, really, really good people. But then, you know, I'm a pacifist. I don't believe a lot into killing people or war or anything like that. Then the second thing is I believe in merit, support of tenure. I really like to buy into the orders and all these things. So there were a number of things that were creating a little bit more noise for me. So I did into a process into finding what I really wanted to do, and technology was always there. So I really studied computer science, and then I took this ladder into. First, I started working in a telco in their data center. I was a very technical person, specializing in internet working, and then I switched to product and operations, and then I switched to business, and then I went through these three companies. One was Comset, then it's AOL, and now it's Google, in which I've been for almost 13 years.
So I think one of the things, Lino, and sorry to just, I like to kind of just jump in every couple minutes. Sorry, just to say, to show you have call, right? Call people that, and we have people that are in companies already that are looking to, reach the next level in their career. And so I think what's important to understand here is when Lino came to start out, guys, he tried different things, right? And whether you're an entrepreneur launching a product in the marketplace, or a job seeker coming into the job market for the first time, or even someone trying to get promoted or succeed within your organization, it's very important to understand that you may have a different perception of something than it actually is, whether it's the marketplace or a job. And so you need to go and try it, and you need to go and experience it firsthand. And then you need to come back and say, all right, this was what I expected or not what I expected, and then readjust, right, your expectations or your targets and objectives. So Lino obviously did that with the Air Force, right? And then he went and joined a bunch of tech companies. And it looks like, Lino, you took off pretty quickly thereafter, right? Once you made that initial pivot from the Air Force into the tech world, it sounds like things worked out for you very well.
I can't complain. I add a few other things. One of them is my appetite for risk. After AOL and before Google, I took a sabbatical year in which it ended up being like a year and a half. I wanted to understand what I wanted to do in the future while I was cooking in the restaurant of my wife in Paris, which is something that I have a passion for. I love cooking. I love food. I always had this dream about running a restaurant, and it was a great experience. So sometimes you get learnings from places that are not the obvious places. So it's not because you're doing well in tech that the only thing that you need to do is train yourself a little bit harder on a given technology or knowing a little bit more into something. I think sometimes you need to make a pause and reflect into what is important for you, because that will give the energy and the passion that you will be putting in your next chapter. Because I haven't seen anyone who only have good things into any of the chapters of their life. You have challenges always, and this is what makes things more interesting. The more you align this drive on what you want to achieve, the passion, and as well having some of the skills and capabilities, the better it's going to go.
Amazing. That makes a lot of sense. Now, let's move a little bit to technology and entrepreneurship and potentially their intersection, but also their role in the MENA region. I want to know more. What's Google doing when it comes? Google is a tech company. They're a global tech company. That's what you're known as and what you're known for. Now, that may be changing now. I'm going to let you answer that. But, what does it have to do with the Middle East, North Africa? How does it fit, right? We know that a lot of your R&D and your products are developed in Silicon Valley or in the US, right? And then the world consumes them. So what are you doing here in Middle East, North Africa? Why is it important to support entrepreneurship and startups here? And what are you doing about that? What kind of startups are you supporting and why?
Okay, a lot of questions. Let's go one by one. So first, your question into why Google.
You accidentally muted yourself, Lino, or someone muted you accidentally? Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's probably no worries. First, I don't know where you lost me, but what I was saying is, first I'm going to talk about Google in general, why we are here. Google is a global company, and I think we are touching almost every single country in the world, maybe with the exception of a few countries in which internet is not necessarily easily available. But when you look at this area of the world, you have over 500 million people, which is a significant part of the global population. And also you have a number of thriving countries and communities, which makes a ton of sense. We even have used some of the complexities in the region to improve our products. An example of that will be our comprehension of languages, which is a very, very complex, technical computational challenge, was improved in the region because of Arabic and the many dialects that you have. Although you could say it's a single language, it's so diverse and so wide apart that it was a good place to start into improving how we can understand better. And even in places like my home, as an Argentinian, I speak Spanish as my main language. My wife is French, so she speaks French. And my children, we live in Dubai. They speak mostly English, I'm afraid, but they speak the three languages. So it's not uncommon that when we interact with the Google Assistant, we mix three languages in a single sentence. Okay, so imagine that in Arabic when you use dialects and things that are very, very, very difficult to fully understand depending on where you are. So we use this region for, among some other things, to learn about that. With all these people and this population there, we focus on three things. One is the users, which we have our products like Google Search, like YouTube, all the Google suite of products as consumers. The second is we have our business for advertising, in which we have large customers in the region that are selling their products in the region and outside the region as exports. And finally, our technology cloud products, in which we enable all the different businesses and startups to get the right technology to fulfill their mission. So I'm going to pause a little bit on the Google side there. Then the second you said about innovation is coming from Silicon Valley and the US. Well, although as a general statement that's true, innovation comes everywhere in this company, and even engineering centers that work in product development, we have many around the world. Let me mention a few. We have in London, we have in Zurich, we have in Tel Aviv, we have in Singapore, we have in Australia, I think it's Sydney, but I'm not 100% sure. And we have in Tokyo. We have actually quite a few others, and we even have an AI research center in Ghana, as an example, on how diverse some of this creation of technology is on a world basis. Of course, the leadership of the company is in Silicon Valley. That applies for most of the tech companies, or Seattle actually.
How can we get an R&D center here in Dubai or in one of the countries here in the Middle East other than Tel Aviv?
Yeah, well, if you look at Tel Aviv, the number of engineers they have and the talent they have makes reasonable for the creation of that. I think that first, I don't rule out that at one point in time one will come here. And as an Argentinian, there's none in the Spanish-speaking side of Latin America, which is around 500 million in size as well. There is one in Brazil, and it was because we bought a company there at one point in time, and then in Belo Horizonte, we kept as an engineering center. So the fact that did not happen in the past by no means predict the future.
So we need more engineers, or we need more companies that Google might acquire, guys. Just keep that in mind, okay?
Yeah, that's the two easiest one, but there's other ways. So there's even more opportunities.
Amazing. And so the last part of my question, kind of, and I know I combined a few, Lino, sorry. What are you doing with startups here, and why are you supporting startups in the MENA region specifically?
Yeah, let me take a little bit of a bigger view there, and I'll come to startups at the end. One of the things we're trying to do is enable people to embrace technology, and goes to many other places. So we launched this program called Maharat in Google. I'm not doing advertising. I'm just telling you the strategy and what we're trying to achieve here. Actually, it's a free program. So
what's it called, Lino, again? What's the program called?
Maharat min Google.
Oh, Maharat min Google. For those of you who speak Arabic, Maharat min Google. Very nice pronunciation, Lino. Thank you.
So what we are trying to do is give digital skills to people in the region for two different reasons. One is we found that when we were engaging with companies, startups, they were complaining that the level and the number of people that had the right digital skills was below their expectations. And even in certain cases, they were willing to hire certain people, but they were lacking some basic digital skills. And we did this to improve employability, number one, which means that people with the right digital skills can get easier access to employment. And when you look at the stats of this region, unemployment, particularly for the youth, is huge. And that's a big game changer.
So this is for individuals, Lino, as well as this is for individuals now we're talking, right?
This is for individuals. It's specifically for individuals. And the second part is this will create as well people that will be better consumers as customers for all the startups and SMBs, because they will know how to use technology, they will know how to use a phone, they will know how to they know how to use a smartphone a little bit better, and so on and so forth. This is a little bit of looking at the big picture. Let's go into startups specifically. Startups are all around the world, and there's only a few markets in which you could say that they are not thriving, because in general they are thriving everywhere with different degrees of success, but a lot of startups are succeeding. I think availability of funding has become more prominent, number one. Second, the willingness on people to say, hey, I want to do my own company. Because you have all these icons of people. Actually, if you look at the top 10 companies in the world, many of them were a startup less than 2 decades ago. So you see this role model, if you want, of success that is taking place, which is great. And we deeply analyzed what are the factors that contribute to these startups being more successful. And we don't influence them all, by the way. So there's a combination between what the governments can influence and create, particularly on the laws, on the taxes, and a number of other things. What the ecosystem provides, availability of talent, and a number of other things. And then what the tech companies can make available from a tech point of view, if you want.
So what tech companies need to provide to enable young people and entrepreneurs to succeed in a given market?
Yeah, I don't, actually I would not use the word young people. I would use only entrepreneurs. And I think if a person wants to start a company at the age of 7, lighter. And I think we will see more and more that happening, where the age is less of a factor in this. It's not what the reality reflects today, and I'm very aware of that. But I think in the future of work and the area in which we go, everybody should be able to start a company. And technology should have the simplicity of enable business ideas or even non-business ideas, not-for-profit, that are impactful for people regardless of their age or their tech savviness.
Okay, so Lino, this Maharat program is targeting individuals, you said, right? But
Yes.
I've also heard of Google Accelerators. I've seen some news.
We go into that as
okay.
well. If you
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. For that, we do a number of things. So first, we have a program that we only launched recently in the region for the first time, which Google's for Startups Accelerator. In this first edition, we chose a handful of startups. I don't remember if 10 or 11 actually, which a number of criteria where companies applied to this program. There was a committee with all the guidelines of what we were trying to achieve in diversity of countries, in diversity of gender founders, and so on and so forth, to try to equip these startups to grow faster and be more successful. And I think it's such a telling thing, the enthusiasm that this created on people inside of Google from the region, even in California. So we got people joining at 3 in the morning their time to do some of the sessions that are still taking place. This is a 10 weeks program in which we try to equip these startups from A to Z into being more successful through a number of lectures and through coaching and many other things. But what I can tell you is, first is the first edition that we will use to adapt this program more to the region and improve the future editions. Second, we, as Google, we always measure our impact by the successes we have. And the success is how can we effectively accelerate not just the companies that we touch, as well how this has a rippling effect in which we accelerate companies that even are around, that will be providers of these companies, or talent will be moving right, left, and center. So that will enable as well.
Very cool. And it's Google Ventures. I mean, we hear this brand, Google Ventures, right? We don't know exactly what they do, but is that something that would be tied to this accelerator? Is Google Ventures thinking of coming into MENA and making investments, or?
No, Google Ventures initially was only focused in the US. Then they did a little bit of an international expansion at a very small scale, and for the time being, we are not planning to bring them here, like most of the world. COVID doesn't really help at all into that, although in today's world, we are doing this probably see, so that will be heavily simplified, but maybe the moment was not right.
So for now,
before we move into your next question, a couple of other things regarding what we do to enable the ecosystem. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with GDGs, which are these Google development groups. So we have 70 chapters in the region with 15 countries. and we trained 750,000 developers in the region. Okay, and you heard that right, 750,000. This is from very different.
This is free, Lino. This is free training.
This is free training. Yes.
So
yes.
Google has so far provided training to 750,000 people free in the MENA region.
Yes, but we don't do this directly. We use these developer groups. So we have a structure of chapters in which we come and we use a train-the-trainer model, where there are these groups that they train themselves. We put them together. So December 2019, I hope I'm not mistaken on the date, when it was still possible, we brought all the chapter leaders together in the Opera in Dubai to thank them and to coordinate. There's this, grassroots effort to upskill the region, and you have to see the passion. And it's not just that. We also have women tech makers support. We have 130 communities in 15 countries.
How can the 105, and we're reaching the limit of the audience that we can have in this room, how can they find out about these opportunities and apply and join and participate?
They can Google them. Google developers groups and find the chapter closer to you. So this is the easiest way. And we try to do communication. We feel that the most effective communication is the one that is closer to you. But effectively, maybe we need to do something specifically with the groups of startups so they know all the playbook on what we have. And actually, Salim Abir is a Google employee who's leading all these efforts here for all the developers group. I'm going to give him the challenge on how we can create maybe a few, I don't know if it's a 1-pager or a 10-pager, whatever, that we can share, and you can get all the basics, and then you can distribute freely with all the startups that you have.
That would be great. And another question, I'm going to move on now to some advice. I mean, we have a lot of entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs on this call today who are in the beginning of their journey as entrepreneurs, or a little bit more advanced, or thinking about starting their journey. What are some main pieces of advice from your career or from your experience that you can give them?
Yeah, I always like to use personal stories. When I started going to university, I shifted and started going to university at night, and I had this little company with a friend. And it was a company focusing to processing of certain data. I'm not going to go into the details. But I remember things like, walking like long distances in my hometown to avoid spending money on taxis and in metros and similar, to save money to buy hard drive space, which was expensive by the time. And my point, though, what I want to make here is the journey of a startup, will present you with challenges. And the first is you need to be really, really, really aligned into which impact you want to bring with your organization. I rarely see people succeeding when they were thinking, I want to make $1 billion. I think they were much more successful when they understood clearly what was their mission and which passion they have to fulfill that. But passion is a word that is sometimes overused. I don't think that it's possible to have a passion for every single duty you will have to have in your startup. So is that passion for your mission that is going to help you cope with all these things that you don't necessarily enjoy, that are going to be challenging, that are going to be boring, that are going to be rot stopper, that are going to make you question why do you do what you do. So that's my first. So get your passion to simplify your life by knowing where your mission is going. And then the second is a very politically incorrect one. Even more in these COVID times, everybody speaks about work-life balance and mental well-being and all that. I think that's incredibly important. And actually, I think that sometimes you get your best ideas when you effectively can cut your job out and think more laterally and see the big picture. But what I'm going to tell you is that I truly believe that in the early stages of a startup, over-indexing in working hard and long hours pays off. That's a personal belief, and that's what I want to share.
So hard work pays off, and that's kind of connected to the first one, Lino, right? In the sense that, if you're doing something that you're very passionate about, you're more likely to be able to work those longer hours without, having a breakdown.
It's true. But then the second part of the advice is this is not sustainable over time. It's only a few people that can work at hard for a long period of time with the same effectiveness. Your challenge is to scale. And scale is not just getting more revenues or going to more countries or whatever. Scale is getting the talent in which you can delegate, and you should, the duties that you should not be looking after anymore. So by being able to do that, you can really reduce the number of hours you can work and focus only into the places where you add the most value.
So delegation and sort of teaching, right? Because in order to delegate, sometimes, especially when you're doing an innovative startup, you sort of have to teach the next generation, quote unquote, or the colleagues to be able to trust them and that they can do the work, right?
Or not. I think that in many cases you can learn more from your team than teach. And staying learning is a very important thing. It's very common that we believe that because we started something or we lead something, we should tell how it should be done. That's the opposite of how it should be done, in my opinion.
Amazing.
Actually, if you hire the right talent, hopefully they will do this better than you. You should aim at hiring people that will do things better than you, that you could even in the future work for them. And that should be the right mindset. You still are going to be possibly the largest shareholder or having the most executive position, or maybe not. I mean, it's of greatness of a founder. And I'm going to use Larry and Sergey as an example. At one point in time, they brought Eric Schmidt to the company because he had a bigger experience into how you run a large company, and they learned from him.
So Lino's talking about the founders, two of the founders of Google, guys, or the founders of Google's, the co-founders, admitting or realizing at some point that they needed to bring in someone else that had more experience than they did to help them run the company, right, Lino? Without correct
exactly.
me if I'm in, yeah.
And for instance, I think this is public, but when Larry left the company as CEO and Sundar was appointed CEO of Alphabet, Larry and Sergey made an offer to Sundar, which is we will always be there to answer any question that you have or support you. The only requirement is that you ask for it. And I think that brings an excellent point, which is you need to have mentors and coaches that are easily available. There's a lot of people that wants to help startups. Sometimes in the day-to-day, you forget about that. And let me tell you why these two things are so important and why each one of them is so important in a different capacity. So coaching will be, hey, there's something I want to do better, and somebody comes and coaches you, typically through a technique of open questions, in which you come out with a better way of doing this. And getting somebody from outside to coach you, I think is phenomenal. And also that will help you as a manager on how you can coach your team. And the second thing, a mentor. And this is my view of the biggest value of a mentor. A mentor is supposed to be this person that is more senior than you, has this more experience than you in the past, in which you can go with a problem or a challenge and ask for advice. But because the person should not be from any place near your environment, just the fact that you need to present the challenge carefully enough for the person to understand allows you to organize your ideas in such a way that you get 50% of the clarity on how you fix it. And to me, that's a massive, massive, massive benefit. And maybe the last thing that you could do here is really work on your secret sauce. One more, me too, just because I do things better than the others is possible, but very difficult, particularly if you don't have a ton of money behind, or a highly competitive team, which super education and so on and so forth. I think find your secret sauce. It could be proximity, it could be understanding, it could be the product that you have, it could be many things. But find your secret sauce that is important, and ask for help to improve it. Ask for help to improve it.
Very nice. That's great advice, guys. Just to quickly summarize. So number one is find your passion and align around that passion to make sure that it motivates you. Number two is work really, really hard to achieve that passion and to achieve those objectives, and don't expect any less. You're going to have to work long nights. You're going to have to work weekends. You're going to have to put in that extra effort. Number three is leverage mentors. Leverage the people around you who have more experience than you do, right? And that you can get advice from on a regular basis. People that are very accessible and that are willing to give you advice. And then finally, the final one was this: find your secret sauce, right? Find your secret sauce that keeps you excited always, and your special value, right? It's also called the value proposition, or your competitive advantage, or what's different about you, or your why as a company, or as a product, or as a service. So those are great tips, Lino. I hope I got them right.
One comment on the second that you made, which is very important. So work really, really hard on the beginning, okay? And make sure you scale through delegation and big talent, because it's not sustainable to work that hard for a long time.
Exactly. The timing element there I missed, which is very important. So work hard, especially in the beginning, and then delegate, right? And learn how to delegate, and delegate to people that are stronger than you, if possible, that are better than you are, right? That have more knowledge than you, and don't be afraid to do that. So those are all very difficult things to do for those of us who are founders, and know it's difficult to do that sometimes. It can be very challenging. Amazing advice, though. So let me ask you like a very simple question, that is a bit blunt, but that may sort of, I'm sure you have some insights on this, and I'm sure everybody here would be interested. How do I get a job at Google?
You apply for it. I got a job at Google because I went to the website. I sent my CV, they called me, and after a number of interviews, I got the job. I knew very little people inside of Google. I didn't do anything different than going to the web, finding a role there, which I thought I was good at, and then get through the process.
But this was not when TV was in black and white, right? Because if it was, then that must have been a little easier back when TVs were in black and white.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit later than that. But I think that the difference is the company, I don't know, was a 10,000 people company by the time, and now we're whatever, 150,000. And also we were advertising a number of roles by the time, and now it's even more. But the attractiveness we get, I don't know how many million people apply to the roles for every year. So I'll tell you a few things that I know might work. Referrals do work. If you know somebody working at Google that has worked with you in the past, that helps. Because when you refer somebody, you need to say, hey, why you refer this person? Did you work with the person before? And so on and so forth. That's number one. The second is go to the web, find the roles, and apply. That works as well. I'm proof that it does work without using any leverage. And finally, prepare very well. These are very competitive processes, and there's a ton of advice on YouTube into how to prepare, and in other websites for the interviews. But I'll say that the most important thing is just bring yourself to the meeting. Prepare seriously, but just be you. Don't try to pretend to be somebody else. That typically fails.
Got it. Great, Lino. Thank you. I'm gonna do one more question from us at Changelabs before I move into a few questions that we're getting live from the audience. Those are going to be a bit more interesting, but we'll power through them.
Yeah.
My last question for you is, what's the latest technology that Google is working on? Everybody hears, and we've seen videos of robots, right, jumping around in a Boston. I know that wasn't Google; it was a Google-owned company, I think. But we've seen these crazy videos online. What's the latest from Google that you know about that you can tell us? That you wouldn't
Yeah,
have to
that's
tell us
that
anything.
was Boston Dynamics. We sold the company, so that's not us anymore. Listen, the latest technology. We are in so many fields. I have to start with a very personal choice, which is the latest technology to me is the improvements in search that we launch many every year. I use Google Search every day, many times per day. And the complexity of providing you with the best results is a super complex computational problem. And we are improving that product every year. We make many tweaks to make sure that the results are more relevant. To me, this is phenomenal. Of course, that's not the inspirational, fancy answer that you were waiting for, but to me, that's the most important because that's really an enabler to make your life better every day. The second one, if you want to go into more inspirational things, I think the quantum computing space and an announcement we did not that long ago into some achievement that our team has done. Please Google this. I don't want to go into very technical details because we have an audience that is a little bit mixed there, but that's very inspirational. It basically means that computers will be able to have such a shift in the capacity that they can process that a number of things will be possible that were completely impossible before. A few other things that come to mind, all the cloud space. First is the AI being packaged in tools and solutions that we can easily use. An example will be, I don't know, the visual API, in which you can train AI models to recognize certain visual patterns. And obviously, you can do from commercial to non-commercial things, and I think it's phenomenal. And that, I think maybe all the multi-cloud space, Antos, which builds on top of Kubernetes. If this is a little bit too technical, let's say how you use the cloud independent of the vendor more effectively, and you build this provider neutral from conception. So you don't need to be stuck with any technology from anyone. I think this space is advancing so fast and is so great. And if you want, I'll take one from Alphabet as opposed to just Google, which is very inspirational in these COVID times. It's called AlphaFold, which is this AI-powered model that understands how proteins can shape. And it's a big breakthrough. So you can predict this as opposed to observe. And the accuracy is getting improved all the time, and this can have a profound impact into healthcare.
So this is a computer, that would predict when someone's about to have a cold?
No, this is how proteins shape. It's a very research-based, deep technical solution. So take it as a different path of AlphaGo. AlphaGo, thank you for the link there in the chat. AlphaGo was how we, master the game of Go, and we managed to beat every human player. Okay, as opposed to doing that, which was more ludic, this is about understanding based on a number of factors how proteins can fold and the shape they have, and this has a profound impact into healthcare and science for enabling researchers. This is a problem that has been around for many decades, and now we got into a very thorough approach into how to solve this. These things are passionating because you can really jump into spaces that are incredibly complex and will have a profound impact on our lives for the future.
Amazing. Got it. Very exciting stuff. So what, I'm getting a lot of questions and we only have limited time. So guys, I'm not going to be able to address all the questions we're getting. But one of the questions that I think is interesting is, would you say that Google has gone from a disruptor, beginning as a disruptor, obviously, to a maintainer of the status quo? Now, your answer may be no, based on some of the new technology we just heard about. But what would you say to that? Is Google still a disruptor, and will Google stay a disruptor, or does Google is not interested in staying a disruptor?
Mm, the answer is no, and because of all the things that I just mentioned. Supercomputing is a big change. Some of the things that we're doing on the AI space, in my opinion, are big disruptions. Of course, how much innovation can you bring to products? Or even when I chose as my first and starting point, you mentioning Google search, when you go and you see the web page, it does look not that different than the one that you got a year ago. But let me tell you, the technology and the signals and many of the things that are behind have been improved many times in the last 12 months. And I think we are effectively disrupting. The problem is that people get used to certain things to becoming normal. So we have more computing power. Let me choose my Pixel phone. We have more computing power in our hands today that what we used to put the man on the moon a few decades ago. But for us, this is even more than normal now. So it's as well how we are changing. But we do have some challenge of disrupting ourselves all the time in all the areas. That is true. I think that organizations, when they grow, they face these things.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I think we are going to need, and maybe you and I, Lino, can work on this offline, but we are going to need a way, because we're getting a lot of questions on what are the different programs for engineers and where can we find them. And, I assume, guys, everything can be found online through Google searches in terms of what programs Google is offering for engineers and program development and developers and those groups that Lino was talking about. I think all the information can be found online. I promise you, I will try to get something from Lino after the call that I can share with you all, if there is such a thing.
Why don't we do something, if you allow me? Why don't we put on the hook Salim Avid? He is the person that leads all the Google developers challenges. He's a fascinating person. He's an engineer, and he can tell you all the tools, and he speaks with such a passion for this. So let me put him on the hook, and maybe either you do a session with him or he sends you some material that you can distribute.
Perfect. That sounds great. I think a lot of people are asking that question. Another good question that we have here is, does Google have any grants or starter kits for startups to use Google Cloud services to help them scale?
We do. But again, just different programs, different packages. We have many. So let's get Salim so he can tell you all of these questions.
Okay, great. That's also a Salim question. So guys, all the questions around what Google offers in terms of tools and reasons, you will either call or separately with Salim, okay, who's a colleague of Lino.
We can give you a one page as well. It's just covering all the programs is going to be challenging.
Yeah,
I don't think we put this information in a single place. I think it's going to be better to get a person that is going to answer because different technologies have different possibilities.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. So guys, stay tuned. This is not us telling you we're not going to do something about it. We're absolutely going to come back to you with something that'll give you a lot more information. It'll either be another call like this one with someone that's, specialized, or we'll send you some materials. One or the other, we'll make sure to address these questions. Another good question we have here, this is more from a startup, right? I mean, or an entrepreneur, how much do you think, Lino, I mean, you talked about passion, you talked about hard work. How much would you give your idea before you pivot? How many times can you pivot? And when is it time to say this is not working, I need to quit?
Yeah, I don't think I can give you a blanket answer.
Of course, that's a difficult, challenging question.
More than challenge is contextual.
Yes.
This is not a one size fits all, and you could by not perseverating, you could have killed the best idea ever. So I'm not sure. Look at companies like Tesla and some of the challenges they faced in the last years, and look at where they are today. Could have gone any direction. So I just think that possibly the best answer to the question comes from you. Because nobody will know better than you, but sometimes we don't want to face the truth or the reality, because at the end of the day, it's a compromise. And even if you don't succeed based on what you were trying to achieve, not succeeding could be a success on itself if this was an enabler for a better approach for the next idea. So the path of failures to success, I strongly believe in that. And I think the more you develop your learning skills on how you build on top of what you have done before, the better it's going to be. So both sides can work. If you continue in an idea and then it's successful, you're successful. If you continue in an idea and then at one point in time you don't have the strength or the will to continue and you kill it, but this was the base for in 2 or 3 iterations into the future, go and be successful. That was time well spent. And depending on the context, plenty of areas in which you can go one way or the other. So there's no blanket answer.
That's a great answer to a very challenging question that many of us, obviously face as entrepreneurs. Should I quit? Should I keep going? And I think it's something for that's contextual. Like Lino said, you have to think about it carefully, depending on your situation. But even if you do shut down, even if you do consider it quote unquote a failure, of course, hopefully it helps you build on an eventual success, right? Because every success is a string of failures, essentially, over time that builds. So great. One last question before I close out, guys. What is your favorite thing about Google, Lino?
What's my favorite thing about Google? Yeah, the healthy disregard for the impossible. And this is a quote from Larry Page, not my own. I saw many projects during things that I consider not feasible or very into the future. And most of them failed actually, and it's okay. But as opposed to finger pointing and to say, "Hey, I told you so," that was wrong. It is much more, "Hey, you know what? This is what I learned on this journey, and this is why did not work." And some of them were even close to be successful, or they could have been successful, but you have a limited number of resources, which mostly are constrained by talent more than cash in our case. So you really want to prioritize your resources into the places that have more impact. So some of them were killed because of that, or were sold, or and so on and so forth. But I think that's it. And I remember, being touched to being emotional in some internal presentations in which we were describing either daring projects or technology that did not work at the end of the day. But it doesn't matter because we tried, and also because we knew what we were trying to achieve, and because it's inspiring to see a person, a team, or an organization really shooting higher. Okay, so this is my favorite thing at Google. Even today, I still think that not necessarily so visible all the time externally, but internally, the organization all the time tries to do that, and we hold each other really accountable in that regard, not to be complacent and really have this internal kick in the butt that makes you go further.
So this, what did you call it, Lino, in the beginning? You to dream the impossible?
Disregard for the impossible.
Sorry, say it one more time, Lino. Sorry.
Healthy disregard for the impossible.
So a healthy disregard for the impossible. A healthy disregard for the impossible. Amazing. That's really cool. So like this idea that you can push always, try to hit the moon, try to hit beyond the moon, try to go farther than you think you can go, right? Trying to achieve the impossible. In other words, disregarding the fact that it is impossible, in fact, and trying to achieve it or trying to achieve something right below it or next to it. And that healthy amount of that will keep a company, presumably innovative and disruptive and exciting place to work as well. Exactly, a healthy disregard for the impossible. Thank you for that. So I want to close out now, right? I want to thank Lino so much for having spent so much time with us and having answered all of our questions so directly and transparently. It's been an honor and a pleasure to host you, Lino, and to kind of hear about your thoughts about working with Google. We also, I promised everybody on the call, I mean, we've had consistently about 100 people on this call. I want to promise you all that we are going to come back to you with more information on the questions you had that we did not answer today. Okay. And whether that's another call or an information sheet on the opportunities offered by Google for developers, for startups, etc., we will come back to you with that. So stay tuned with us. Follow us at Changelabs on Instagram, and we will share that information with you in the next couple of weeks at the latest. Thank you again, Lino. Any parting words, Lino, for all the young entrepreneurs with us on the call today?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here. I hope I contributed in some sort of form to your journey. But remember one thing, there's only one owner of your destiny, and that is yourself. So be at the driving seat, hold yourself accountable, understand your mistakes, and that's going to take you to a better place. Best of luck.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lino. Thank you, everybody, for being with me today. My name is Karim Samra, again, CEO and founder of Changelabs. Follow me on social media. Follow Changelabs on social media for more opportunities like this. There's a bunch more sessions coming up this month and next month that are going to be very exciting, where we're hosting leaders like Lino that are going to just speak to you from the heart very honestly and take your questions. Thanks again, and see you all very soon.